Inside America's Boardrooms, the informational show for board members and corporate secretaries. Brought to you with knowledge partners Nasdaq, the Center for Audit Quality, and PwC. Along with content contributors Equilar, Meridian Compensation Partners, Wilson Sonsini Goodrich and Rosati, Donnelly Financial Solutions, and the Society for Corporate Governance.
Welcome to this edition of Inside America's Boardrooms. I'm TK Kerstetter, the CEO of Boardroom Resources, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to the show. We're going to be talking about what's next as boards go digital. And who better to be my guest today than Matthew Healy, who's the Vice President and Head of Governance for the Nasdaq Corporate Solutions. Welcome, Matt.
TK, always a pleasure to see you, and thank you for having me today.
Well, this is a topic that we really haven't talked about yet, and you know, our 100+ shows, and,
right.
and it's something that shouldn't have escaped this long, really,
Sure.
because board portals and all that's happened is pretty interesting. Now, having said that, you guys had an event here at Nasdaq with the acquisition of Boardvantage. Talk a little bit about your director's desk and Boardvantage and how you have this powerhouse of a tool right now.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So, director's desk was the legacy board portal that Nasdaq had for a number of years, and we used to compete very heavily with Boardvantage. So over time and working with our customers, we had heard a number of different requirements and different suggestions on how can we take our framework that we have for boards and start expanding it into the leadership category. So Boardvantage has a product called Medex, which is purpose-built to do just that. So when we looked at the acquisition of Boardvantage, we really thought this would have been a fantastic complement to Director's Desk, where Director's Desk is very fit for the boards, and then Medex within Boardvantage is a great way for us to start expanding into the leadership category. So far, everything has gone great. The Boardvantage team has been fantastic. So it wasn't even just the platform that we acquired, it's the excellent people that they have. And our customers have reacted very, very well to this. The feedback and direction in which we're going with the platforms was well received, and we're looking forward to the future.
Well, it should be interesting as this all continues to unfold, because you're right, that took two sort of powerhouses and put them together. So it'll be interesting to see how all that evolves. So, you know, I've been involved with portals since the very beginning, and it's interesting how they've been accepted. Do you have any feel for like how accepted it is at this point versus, you know, in the sense of what kind of percentage maybe uses board portals or doesn't use board portals?
Well, speaking for Nasdaq, and one of the things that I think people are not familiar with is they think of Nasdaq and they'll automatically think of an exchange. But we do offer several complementary services for customers that may want to list with us. So within that, we have investor relations, public relations, as well as corporate governance, which is our suite of board portals with Boardvantage and Director's Desk, as I mentioned. So within Nasdaq, certainly it is the majority of customers that we have who are listed here that are using a board portal. But however, the interesting thing is that I do see a gap out of there, a gap every week when I visit with customers or prospects, because the Nasdaq is just one exchange. So every week when I have these conversations, I am surprised by the number of public companies that do not have anything in place and still rely on these paper-based processes. And when you think of the most probably common theme, and that's in the papers these days around cyber risk, this is something that I expect that gap to minimize significantly over the next couple of years.
You know, the hesitation that in the beginning of people using this, they got over that hurdle so fast when they saw the convenience of that. So I'm a little surprised that you're still seeing a fairly good sized gap, but I think it's going to close.
I think so too, 100%. And yeah, I mean, absolutely.
Yeah. So let me talk a little bit about how, since those early days when it was just automating part of the board book, talk a little bit about sort of where it's come from that stage to where it is today.
Sure. If I may comment just about two things that have really revolutionized this business, and then I'll get more specific about the things that have been built into the platforms that have really changed it. Two things that have really jumped out at us and has boosted our business is, number one, is the wide adoption of the tablet. Do you use one?
Yes, of course.
Yes, okay. So it really is amazing when you start thinking about when board portals first came onto the market, the thought of having a laptop in a boardroom is almost like a foreign concept right now. It's, everybody's using the tablets, and that has really, really spawned the growth of this business. The other piece is around cyber risk, which I had mentioned to you just a moment ago. And it's interesting the way in which companies will start perceiving cyber risk. A couple weeks ago when I saw you out in California, I had a conversation with a board member, and he told me, Matt, you know what? We are so, he was on a public board, and he said, we are so transparent in our information that we give to the street, that if our information was ever to be compromised, it probably wouldn't impact us that much. However, it was the reputational damage of having a big public business that got compromised that he was concerned about. So I found that fascinating, and just the different ways that people would perceive this. But going back to your question about how things have evolved since the early days with just having a calendar, it really is just the full build out of the workflow within the suite. So everything from scheduling meetings to complex board books that have Excel in there, PowerPoint, and each one of these functions that really value the corporate secretary. So really start building out the entire workflow. And then on top of that, I'd say the other thing in which the way that business has evolved is the data center strategies. So we have a huge customer base that's in EMEA, so we really had to align our data center strategy with where our customers are, and for EU privacy laws and things like that.
Well, that sort of is a great segue to my next question. We are seeing a lot more young Gen Xers or even millennials joining boards. That has got to be a big influence on some of the changes. So when you look into the future, when you look into your crystal ball, what do you see, what could board members expect that's going to be coming down the pike even more?
Sure, and there is, with the way, to your point about Gen Xers and millennials, with the way that they have been adopting collaboration technology for both for business and social purposes, I'm convinced that this is going to be a lead into what we're expecting in the future. So with that said, I think you're going to see a lot more collaboration oriented features built into the platform. So if you're sitting on a board, things like having discussions, task management, notification, where you can start thinking about what a full workflow would look like if you're not just focused on a board. An example of that could be if you are a CFO and you need to manage your earnings release process. So that's a process where you're going to have a lot of different touch points to the organization. There's going to be a lot of Excel-based processes, and you're going to want that to be secure. So those are some of the things that we are starting to really, really build our platform out to see. And I think as board members, as well as millennials and Gen Xers, are really going to start helping bridge that gap. So in the long run, I fully expect that the board portal use case is going to be part of a larger collaboration framework.
Well, no surprise to us. I mean, again, we've seen how millennials have taken that.
Sure.
I have daughters. Fortunately, they've kept me up to speed on what's happening in this world, so I'm not left too far behind. But I think all of that's pretty exciting. It's going to be interesting, Matt, to see what happens. We'll have to have you back in 6 months or so to see how
That'd be great.
all that's rolled out. I want to thank you for taking the time to join us. And that will conclude this edition of Inside America's Boardrooms. We hope you enjoyed the show. We'll be back again next week when we take another look at a critical topic that'll help you be a better board member or committee member. So we'll see you then.
Join us again next week for Inside America's Boardrooms. Brought to you with Knowledge Partners, Nasdaq, the Center for Audit Quality, and PwC. Along with content contributors, Equilar, Meridian Compensation Partners, Wilson Sonsini Goodrich and Rosati, Donnelly Financial Solutions, and the Society for Corporate Governance.